Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Korn Ferry Live. This session is particularly exciting for me this week because as well as hosting, I'll also be talking about our theme. So probably in too much detail, so I apologise for that up front. For all of you first timers out there, these sessions are all about tackling those topics that are having the biggest impact on leaders today. We gather together the brightest minds on a particular topic and dissect and share insights aimed at empowering all of you to make those important decisions. So whether you're a seasoned leader looking for fresh ideas or just getting started in your career, this is the place to be. And as always, we need you to get involved. Use the chat and get those questions in. In addition, we have a bit of a change up today. I'm going to be asking a few questions, turning the tables on you. So that's a chance for everyone to get involved this week. So no excuses. As you probably know by now, I'm your host, Darren Bolton, Chief Creative Officer here at Korn Ferry. And today I'm joined by the amazing Kevin Cashman, Vice Chairman of our CEO and Enterprise Leadership team here at Korn Ferry. Plus, we also have the wonderful Kathy Conway, Senior Campaign Strategist on Korn Ferry's Global Marketing team. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Oh, wonderful to be here. Great to see you, Darren and Kathy.
It's lovely to see you both. So there's a big build up there. So don't let me down, team, okay? I want this to be a winner. So I'll just explain to the audience what we're going to be doing today. So what are we talking about? Well, we have a real treat for you because today we will be talking about the evolution of leadership and how we, with a little help from you, help create a visual metaphor of what a future leader could look like. But this is no ordinary leader. So to whet your appetite, let's see the making of Kai. So I know what you're probably all thinking. How on earth did they get to that? Well, it was a slightly different type of journey. Leadership and what future leaders need to be is a topic we are very familiar with here at Korn Ferry. We've written loads and loads of papers over the years, but in our latest updates, we came across some new thinking and ideas that seem to challenge current perceptions. So we really needed our audience to see this, even if the topic seemed an all too familiar one. When we do a piece of research like this, we always start off with a brainstorm around what formats we need and what messaging we should lead with. And during that process, someone said, well, what do you mean by future? How far in the future is this leader? And I guess typically we'd be talking about what I class the nearish future, if you like, 3, 4, maybe even 10 years at a push. But that got us all thinking. So we started to push it out sort of further and further until we talked about this, I guess the word futuristic. We talked about it for a while and it just seemed to spark more and more debate as to what that leader might need and look like. And I think sometimes we can find it hard to detach ourselves from the here and now, because when you're in the now, we all have lots of valid reasons to not do something, and we can put kind of barriers and even make up excuses like it's not the right time, we don't have the budget, we haven't got the right people, and all the other things we come up with. Whereas when we talked about being futuristic, it seemed to open up the discussion more. It was like having a fresh start. It was, so far from now, it felt like a clean slate, and baggage and excuses were kind of left at the door. But we realized this futuristic approach could be a little bit odd. So, were we going to be going in the right direction? So we needed to test it a little. And we did a few polls across our social channels to see what others thought about a futuristic leader. And I guess that's when it really started to get excited. And Kathy, maybe I'll bring you on this one. I mean, you started all of that research and those polls off. Can you run through a little bit about what we did and maybe some of those initial reactions?
Yeah, for sure. So we ran a number of polls on LinkedIn a while back just to kind of get people's ideas of what superpowers would they give a future leader? What kind of things would they want to see? Thinking really outside of the box. And popular picks were things like multi-presence, telepathy, time manipulation, all makes a lot of sense, right? And we had really high engagement on social, and it showed us that there was a lot of enthusiasm for this topic, not only from our team and our senior leaders that we work with, but also just from all employees everywhere. So certainly got the ball rolling.
Yeah. I remember when you shared those findings with us, it really felt like we were onto something. It seemed to pass what I was called the sniff test. So we knew we were onto something big. It's just, oh, hang on a minute. I think I can see Kai popping up there. I think Kai's unusually large ears might have been burning a little bit. See what I did there?
Oh, terrible joke.
Well,
quit the day job.
Oh my God, it's like being around the dinner table with my kids. Horrible. Anyway, the interesting thing is it looks like Kai has a question for you lovely viewers out there. So Kai and I want to know, what attributes do you think a futuristic leader will need? So put those ideas in the chat if you can. And I think, just dream really big and dream really far into the future. We want you to use your imagination. You can see what Kai looks like. So what do you think? And maybe with those words, add a few words, just describe why you chose that attribute in particular. And as soon as they come through, we'll start to share with you all later. So that's great. And where's Kai? Oh, Kai's gone. I guess in the future, leaders still have very busy schedules as well. So we'll continue with the story. So we had some initial feedback from those polls, which were great. And the next step really was to do a little bit more research, some interviews with our target audience. And Kathy, once again, can you explain kind of the different groups we spoke to and maybe some of the feedback we received?
Yeah, absolutely. So we spoke with CEOs from around the world, C-suites, board directors, and employees. And they said things like, you'd want to scale yourself, be in many places at the same time. You'd want broader tentacles to reach into every part of the business. Someone just said, give them extra ears. They need to listen better, which I thought was pretty good. And again, telepathy came up, similar to what we saw on LinkedIn. So this kind of idea of just knowing what's going on in people's minds, knowing how they're feeling, was really important. And then the last one that I want to tap into was resilience. It came up a lot in various forms, like strength, energy to keep going, rejuvenate quickly, and juggle tasks. And that last bit, juggling tasks, is a really interesting one that I think maybe we'll talk about in a little bit.
Great. And I can see already in the chat, empathy is something that's being quite very popular. I think I can imagine that. High IQ, we've got empathy again. So empathy, we'll see some more as they come through. Adaptability. So it's interesting. So keep those coming, and we'll tap back into those again in a minute. So I think it was after those interviews, that was the moment when I guess the penny dropped that we had something quite interesting to work on. And so it's the starting point for creating this visual, this futuristic leader. And I guess the challenge was, could we take what you, the viewers, the interviews, told us and turn it into a character that was both unusual enough, because we wanted to stand out and grab your attention, but also relatable enough, and that was a real difficult balance for us to try and get that. And whether we did or not, that's for you to say. But what was really also exciting about the character, but what was really exciting about all of this wasn't just the character, but also how long those interviews, people spent talking about it. And I think we get that a lot. Everyone seems really excited. They start debating amongst themselves. It seems to open up people's minds to what could be. So I think the idea that if we get everyone to open up about it, start a conversation, a debate, or even an argument, that's okay. We felt we'd done our job. So the next stage was, we went off and started to create our first version of Kai. And we looked outside, but we hadn't really looked inside. So we wanted to kind of show internally the wider group at Korn Ferry. And the response was interesting, to say the least. We had people excited. We had people totally confused. We had people who thought we'd gone too far. And what was interesting, we had others said we hadn't gone far enough. But early on, we realized whatever we came up with wouldn't be everyone's solution. And that was kind of okay, because the one thing those sessions did have in common was that conversations were very animated. And we rarely finished on time, as everyone had so much to say. So the starting point of the visual didn't really matter as much. It's where the conversation took us that was exciting. So Kai was really just our door opener. And Kevin, you were one of the first people at Korn Ferry to see the visual. Can you? I can remember, but can you remember how you reacted and what you thought when you first saw Kai?
No, I wish I could remember, but my first reaction I do know was, what? Like, what? Has Corn Ferry gone a bit off the edge? Okay, that was my first
Totally.
reaction. My second one is, this is so cool because it's like reading a poem. There are so many interpretations. So as you mentioned, I found it fascinating as an opener to spark people about leadership. So that's where I ended up. It's not where I started though.
Yeah. Oh, and I think that's very common reaction because, when you see something like that and you also see it alongside the brand of Corn Ferry, it's almost a bit of jarring. There's a kind of like the why, how, what, and stuff. And hopefully this session will go to explain some of that. Kathy.
Yeah, Corn Ferry is we're so much about being able to measure things, and that's why we're trusted. But this is going, maybe it's informed by measurement and what we're seeing and what's evolving, but it goes beyond that. Yeah. So that can be a little unsettling, but I think it's really insightful.
And I can see some more things coming up. Patience, people are saying, the ability to see what their people think, read their minds. That could be a bit scary. See the bigger pictures coming up as well. So I think there's some common themes and a lot of stuff that I think we can imagine would be what we'd be looking for from our leaders. So, and Kathy, before we sort of progressed into future stages, not only did we share it internally, we also shared it with some CEOs outside of Corn Ferry to kind of get their reaction. Can you remember what they said?
Yeah, so we kind of went undercover and shared a few early images of Kai without much context at all. And I remember 70% of the people that we showed those early images to of Kai said they would share it with their teams and they'd want to talk about what they were seeing with their peers and other people in the company. So that was fantastic for us because that's exactly what we want to start. They were saying things like, these are amazing images. They transmit feelings. Someone said they saw an alien creature, but a friendly and educated one. And we also asked, what brand do you kind of expect this to be from? Who do you think would be creating this content? Someone said Meta, someone said Google. And that was amazing for us because we obviously see those brands as so forward thinking and kind of technically advanced that it showed us that we were doing something exciting and interesting and kind of pushing the conversation forward. And you mentioned the word surprise, Darren, in our internal interviews. That word was definitely the most common reaction on our survey as well. So it just, it reinforced that this is a great way to start new conversations and thinking about the future of leadership.
Yeah. Right, great. And I think that ability to A, be shareable and B, start new conversations is perfect because that's what we're trying to create with this, is to start those conversations. But sometimes you need something to start those conversations. That image is what we had. And I guess from the back of that, we did a few more versions of Kai and there you have it. Kai was born. And we're all excited by, what Kai the conversations it can start. So, but I think as interesting as Kai is, and yes, it is the door opener, it is nothing without research to kind of like challenge it, I suppose. And some of that research agreed with what you viewers and those interviews told us, but not all. And remember that Kai as a visual is your vision of what a future leader could look like. It comes from those interviews, what you told us. But Kathy, can you talk us through some of the findings from our research and how they do or don't relate to Kai and the visual?
Yeah, well, we certainly agreed on a few things, quite a lot of things. For example, capacity for learning. So Kai's big brain, that's how we kind of visualize that. Adaptability. So you might have noticed that Kai has a little switch on the neck to enable them to adapt to different environments, and empathy, which is why Kai has big ears for listening and kind of empathizing with those around them. But one piece that we were kind of a little bit differentiated on was the extra arms. So lots of people said to us, future leader would need extra hands, extra arms for juggling and multitasking. But our point of view isn't quite aligned to that. We would say, yes, we want Kai to have extra arms and hands, but it's to enable collaboration, to take and offer support from others, not to multitask, because we know that multitasking is conducive to burnout. And if that's the future of leadership, I think we'd all be pretty sad about that. We've got to move on. Leadership is a team sport. So that's why Kai has extra arms.
Great. And did you have a few questions for Kevin? Want to put him to the test?
I absolutely do. It's amazing that we've got one of our leadership experts here, Kevin. So I'm keen to hear what your take is, or like, how do these attributes relate to evolving leadership from your perspective?
Well, I was thinking last night, reviewing all of the work that is so fantastic, what would summarize this? And two words came to mind that connects to the research. These future leaders are very present, meaning connected, empathetic, self-aware, good listeners, and so on. So very present, and they're very prescient as well, meaning they can be in the future and be in the present. They can perform and transform at the same time. They can bridge now and next. So I think those are some of the things that really connect with our Leader of the Future research and connect with the research around enterprise leaders perform and transform across ecosystems, meaning they're in the now performing and they're in the next creating at the same time, if not oscillating back and forth. So many of these points really resonate. The only thing I thought of, well, we're all thinking of things now, right? And that's the whole purpose of this, is to stimulate. I was thinking the thing in the side of his neck, or maybe a different connection would be, and I think this is very possible, how leaders are, through neural links or something beyond that, are going to be connected not to just artificial intelligence, but when artificial intelligence meets quantum computing, we're going to have a connection to that.
Yeah.
I mean, the phone is just a strange approximation of that, but things like that are changing the game and will change the game too. So it's good to think about it and stimulate yourself.
Definitely. Just a quick shout out to our viewers. If you have any questions that you want me to put to Kathy or Kevin, please get them in the chat. I didn't shout out as much as I usually do because I'm usually pestering you all the time. So get those in if you can. Any more questions you want to put to Kevin, Kathy?
Yeah, so just touching on that point of kind of tech advancement and connectivity with it, that's an interesting one, because obviously Kai has bionic arms that symbolize kind of strength, resilience, but also a willingness to test new technology and embrace the unknown. So what's your take on that bit?
Yeah, my take on it is it's a fantastic kind of metaphor for what's needed in the future. I wonder, though, if it's symbolic of the past, manual labor and touching things and moving things around. I would think a little bit more about the thinking capacity being augmented, and maybe the emotional capacity somehow being augmented, right, to think and connect in new ways. The touching is a metaphor for that, but I think we're more likely going to continually connect with something bigger than ourselves to connect with more value in the here and the now.
Great. I have got a question from our viewers. It's always exciting. Oh, here it comes. It all comes up. Oh, it's from Teresa. And I think this was aimed at Kevin. So yes, present and prescient. Wow, very cool descriptions in the now performing and in the future transforming. So which one do you think? Is it about, performing or transforming, or both?
Is this a question for all of us?
Well, it could be for all of us. I think it's aimed at you more than anyone, Kevin, but how do you feel?
Well, it's what's interesting, I think, when we get to leadership in the future, I think we're less likely to be dualistic with our principles, meaning, are we present or are we prescient? Yes. It's both and. It's a dynamic. It's a paradox that has to be reconciled. We need to be both and versus either or. Sure. So that's the challenge of assessment, of leadership development, of getting people ready now for this big next, but it's both and that's the challenge of it.
Thank you, Teresa, for that one. I've got another question coming in as well from Jonathan Pink. How do you find different generations of leaders adapt to these new ways of leadership?
Well, adapt or become irrelevant.
Right. Yeah.
It's our choice. You know, when have we not adapted as a species? Well, maybe we don't even have history of those branches and those generations. So we're constantly adapting. And interestingly, Kai as a name shows up all around the world, male, female, all sorts of things. Although certain cultures like Japanese culture, Kai tends to be a little more male, but again, it's different all over. But Kai means good change.
Sure.
Good change. So that's always our challenge is how can we change acceleration, have change acceleration that adds value. Yeah. That's the challenge of leadership, not change management. It's impossible. Can't manage change. We can accelerate it in new and different life enriching direction. So that's what more and more future leaders will be called to do.
Yeah, and in the chat earlier, when we were asking about the attributes, the ability to manage multi-generational teams is certainly something that came up as well. To take the pressure off you for a bit, Kevin.
It's fantastic. I'm probably in a position to comment on that, maybe as much as everyone in the audience, because I'm not only on my third generation of CEOs, but my fifth generation of management. So it's a learning, it tests our learning agility. It's fantastic. And in a culture where we're all teaching each other from different perspectives, it's really stimulating. Yeah. We get old when we think that the next generation is not going to be up to speed. Everybody's going to be up to speed. Everybody's going to figure out. It's a human thing. So why don't we cooperate and learn from each other as we're going along? It's a wonderful thing.
Exciting. And we've got a question here for Kathy. So you're off the hook for this one, Kevin. No pressure, Kathy. LinkedIn user. So was there any mention of the importance of humility in the feedback you received?
Ooh, interesting one. So yes and no. That is a specifically interesting one because in one part we talked about resilience and kind of embracing the unknown, failing fast and learning. And that kind of speaks to a sense of self-confidence and, like how comfortable you are with power. But there was also the other side that spoke to empathy and being really purpose-driven and collaborating with others. So I think that kind of taps into the humility piece as well. It's not easy. Kai has so many qualities that you might think, how can anyone be all of these things at the same time? But we think it is absolutely possible. And it's just about the balance of those qualities. Perhaps someone might need to practice humility more than another of Kai's qualities, depending on their organization, the industry, and the circumstance that they're in. It really does need to flex, and you need to know what your own strengths are as well as what your business needs to identify, what areas to develop most.
Yeah. You touched on a little bit there, and I was going to ask Kevin this, that leaders have a lot on their plate at the moment, and are we really expect them all to have all these traits at once? Is it fair? Is it even possible for them to be able to take all of this on board?
It's a great expectation because expectations elevate us for growth and something new and different. So the expectation is great. Have we ever met a CEO or a senior leader with all the traits, characteristics, and competencies? No, I've never met one. I've met a few. I've never met one. But it's a great expectation, but we're all going to have a different combination of character traits, of different motives and experiences and competencies. And that's what makes diversity really diverse, is all those combinations are different, and how they'll manifest are different as well. But this is where self-awareness comes in, because we have to be aware of what we have and what we don't have. So we know when to be humble and learn from others, and also know when to be confident, because it's maybe for us to bring in that moment. So think of the combinations of genetics, of character, of culture, of experience, of character traits, of brain power, on and on and on, and what kind of combinations that creates. And that's why leadership is so wonderful. There are principles, but then there's infinite variability.
I think it's those combinations that makes it really interesting, particularly us as an organization. So as always, we've got to the end, run out of time. So thank you both for your time today. I hope we can do this again too. And maybe we've challenged some of those preconceptions. But before we go, and I know we run out of time, so I'm going to just ask you this, Kevin. This is your Jerry Springer moment. Is there any final thoughts that you kind of would like to share with our viewers? That you kind of think, actually, leadership, if there's one thing I was going to take away from it, one attribute I would work on in a generic perspective, I suppose, what would that be?
Well, when you think of leadership in terms of being a leader for life, as well as leader in a role, because we're all leaders and one or both. Yeah. And we think of the pace and the pressure that's happening to us all. Leadership is not just something to become in a role in an organization. It's something that elevates life and elevates the value of bringing and developing all we have to make a difference in the lives of people. Yeah. So thinking of leadership as a whole life, becoming a leader of life, is very provocative and relevant to us all.
Perfect. A lovely way to finish. I said you were both amazing and wonderful, and you really were. So I'm going to have to say goodbye. So thank you very much for your time, you two, and hopefully I'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
See you guys. Bye. And thank you once again for joining us today. And if you're looking for more insights on the future of leadership, or maybe you just want to spend more time gazing into Kai's extraordinary eyes, please visit kornferry.com. Or you might want to join our upcoming webinar on the 27th of March to learn more about the evolution of leadership and find out what leaders really need to know to thrive. And we've got some links in the chat, hopefully, so you can go to those. But that is it for now. I hope to see you all next time. So from me and from Kai, goodbye.